if you've clicked on this video and you're watching on YouTube, you may be thinking to yourself, didn't Josh do a segment on this exact same thing a few months ago? And I would say yes and no. Yes, because Meloni has already betrayed Italy a few times. No, because she's done it again. And this is another follow-up.
Isn't that our most popular segment of all time?
Yes, it is.
That's why you're making it. You want the top slot.
Well, it would be nice, but also just this is... I can't believe she's done it again. Like this whole thing just makes me completely distrust like mainstream populists, right?
Yes.
Like AA has his book, The Populist Delusion. I would rather say the populist deception at the moment, because you have populists in the UK like Farage. So, like, he talks a big game for a few years, and then the second he gets in charge of a party that comes close to a whiff of power, he's like, all of those things that you'd want to vote me for, I won't do them. Completely
I will hand it to Meloni. She has a superior political nous that she waited until after she had been elected before she exposed herself as containment.
Well, this is true, but yes, then you do get people like Meloni, who's like, well, let's just see what she was saying a few years ago.
Just quickly to add, Nigel did say absolutely explicitly a few weeks ago, "I'm not a populist." Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Well, he was sold...
I am not a populist.
He was sold to us as a populist, and Reform are like sold to us as the populist party. Either way, whether or not they call themselves populists, they're sold to us as populists, and they're sold to us not just as populists, but literally the rise of new fascism is what Meloni got everybody excited about a few years ago. Back in 2022, it was, oh my God, she's the second coming of Mussolini, except this time in a skirt. She's going to put up naval blockades across the Mediterranean as part of the EU Sophia mission so that she can stop all of these illegals coming in. And then she gets in, and you start to get articles like how she learned to stop worrying and love migration. Because don't you know, of course, what was the logic and explanation for this? Well, we need the jobs. We need the jobs. Everybody's worried about the pension system. That's another huge one, because the pensions were sold to the boomers years and years and years ago as this thing that means that you'll have infinite wealth going into your later years and you don't need to worry about having to save up money yourself. We'll do it for you. Then the government spent all of that money, badly invested all of that money, and need like a constant revolving door of new people in the country to pay taxes so they can continue to pay the pensions.
That is almost certainly what happened. She got into office and somebody showed her the projections of the Italian boomers' pension demands, and she was basically told, look, you can either find a way to do this through immigration or you can lose your voter base.
It doesn't make sense though, or at the very least it's just kicking the can down the road, because won't all those new people want pensions?
Well, if they're granted citizenship.
Yeah.
It
doesn't solve anything.
The key factor is it then becomes a problem for the person who takes the job after you.
Right, so you're just kicking the can down the road. So you're not solving
policy.
anything.
Yep. No.
In fact, you're making it worse. You're digging the hole deeper.
Yes, but politics in a democratic system is all about kicking the can down the road and making things bad for the next guy after, because, God, I'm not going to be in office after I'm done, so what does it matter? So with this was back in mid-2023 when this quite infamous article came about now, where it was how she learned to stop worrying and love migration. Her legal migration decree estimated that Italy needed 833,000 new migrants over the next 3 years, so that would be up to 2026, to fill in gaps in the labour force, and it opened the door to 452,000 workers over that same period to fill seasonal jobs in sectors like agriculture and tourism, as well as long-term positions like plumbers, electricians, care workers, and mechanics. And because that's what I want. That's what I want, is somebody not from Italy, if I'm a tourist in Italy, showing me around ancient historical sites in Italy. It makes perfect sense. The latest betrayal is that she's now going to be issuing 500,000 non-EU work visas over the next 3 years. So this is on top of that. So that one was projected to 2026. Now it's from 2026 to 2028. About 497,550 new entries will need to be allowed in by 2028. And again, this isn't like taking This isn't taking people from the rest of Europe, like a labour surplus from Eastern Europe or something. This is just like explicitly non-EU. So this will be subcontinentals, Middle Easterners, North Africans.
I mean, they might as well just build a bridge from the bottom of Italy over to North Africa.
Well, she is currently trying to build a bridge from Italy to Sicily. So you don't have to take a boat.
Just extend it a bit further and just let the Africans just come in.
Yeah, you might as well. And they point out this is the second time that she's done this, when you see the other 500,000 that she was... 450,000. That was slightly less ambitious than this one. The quotas, according to a spokesperson who gave a statement, were determined taking into account the needs expressed by the social partners and the actual applications for work permits submitted in previous years, with the aid of a programme that responds to the needs of businesses and is also real. So it's just keeping labour costs down. It's just like there's big business which bankrolled this party, I would assume, and they want cheap labour. Simple as that. And also, our pension scheme is a complete scam, as all pension schemes in the West are. Therefore, we need to keep the scam going. And they also say an ageing population and sagging birth rate highlight the need to attract foreign workers in the Eurozone's third largest economy. There were some 281,000 more deaths than births in 2024, and the population fell by 37,000 to 58.9 million, continuing a decade-long trend. To counter the ongoing depopulation and maintain current levels of inhabitants, Italy would need to take in at least 10 million immigrants by 2050, according to research by some think tank. Which means that, the population drops to, say, 50 million. You've already got lots of migrants in Italy. You need 10 million new, presumably non-EU people in. At what point does Italy no longer meaningfully remain Italy? When the population is completely replaced? At what point is the tipping point where Italy is just like just another economic zone for vagrants from across the world?
It's like that logical test of Odysseus' ship or whatever it was, where they replace the parts, and at what point is it no longer
Theseus?
Ship. Yeah, it's like how many Africans in Italy before it's
just another province of Africa?
Yes.
How many handles and broom heads does Trigger's broom need replacing before it's no longer Trigger's broom? Yeah, that whole thing, I've never understood. I've never bought it, the fact that, your population is declining, or your older population as a percentage is increasing. There's problems with the pension. There's problems with GDP. Therefore, you must just have millions of new people. No, let the population go down. Let GDP decline. Let the pension scam collapse.
Yes.
As long as that means we're not replaced in our own ancestral homelands. Yeah.
I mean,
let population and the economy decline a little bit.
The entire rest of the world manages without a pension system, and they just put the grandparents in the attic if they can't afford to keep themselves. Do that.
Or like, just as you're growing, as you're getting older, you could maybe try and squirrel away a little bit more money yourself independently without relying on the government to do it for you.
I mean, Morgoth has said it, but many different people have said it. But I just completely agree with no, I'd rather live in a poorer country. I'd rather be a bit poorer, where unemployment is relatively high because there's so few people, than be swamped by Arabs and Sub-Saharans and Bangladeshis.
Well, the problem is with...
How is that...
The problem is with that is that Italy actually is an excellent test case against that, because like with everything else, actually, if we were to get rid of all of these people, we would be immensely richer. We'd be much better off. And Italy kind of proves that, because instead of getting in 500,000 mercenaries into your country, why don't you just provide incentives for all of the people who are already unemployed in Italy? As of 2 months ago, May 2025, it's got 6.5% unemployment rate, which is pretty high. And among youth, defined as 15 to 24-year-olds, it's 20%. It's ridiculously high at all times. And has not dropped below 20% for over 20 years.
So we've got massive unemployed people, and therefore we need to bring in people from outside to do jobs.
Do jobs, and in the agricultural sector, which will probably be automated away in 10, 20 years anyway.
Yes.
which is part of the other part of the equation that they don't like to talk about.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's also a possibility. What if we really do get a breakthrough in robotics? Then all of those people you've imported are going to have to go on welfare.
Yeah, but I mean, if this is always the thing. Is it about actually helping those sectors when you've already got, I mean, in 2014 they had 42% youth unemployment, right? Overall unemployment across Italy is 6.5%, but agricultural jobs, those kinds of jobs, perfect for young people. You get outside, you move about, you're still young, you're still healthy, you can do that kind of thing easily, right? Do we give them incentives to do those jobs, or do we replace them so that we can keep labour costs down for the sake of big businesses? Well, I mean, I see what the obvious answer is. The one that doesn't replace your historic population and have it so that Ahmed is showing you around the Colosseum of Rome when you're on your tourism trip. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. There are other things that go on in Italy with the migration. The way that Meloni seems to try to sell all of this is that, but undocumented arrivals have more trouble.
She wearing trainers?
Yes. Yes.
Just to pick up on your last point, I'm not fundamentally against seeing Ahmed in the Colosseum.
Well, that's a conversation for a different time, though, isn't it?
Yes.
So 2 years into her term as Italian Prime Minister, I want to say, there's other things that they try and do. She's established herself among several European leaders as a model of anti-immigration policy. She's setting a great example for them. In particular, she had a more recent measure. This article is from October of last year, which is sending illegal migrants who arrive in Italy to Albania. However, the transfer of the first 12 migrants who arrived in Albanian centres in October of 15th had already been cancelled by the Italian courts. As always happens, despite the fact that this was a very popular policy across basically all of Europe, even Keir Starmer at the time was saying what a great policy it was, just the courts say no. The courts say no, this is some kind of illegal or arbitrary, unfair detention. European Convention on Human Rights say that you can't do that, so you have to house them in Italy instead. What's so wrong with Albania? The decree requires ships to immediately request a port of disembarkation, to which they must, I don't even know if that's a word, which they must head to without delay after a rescue intervention. This is if they're picked up on the Mediterranean, rather than staying at sea to help the occupants of other boats in danger. So this was one that was trying to target NGOs that often foreign-funded NGOs that like to patrol the Mediterranean, and if they see a ship sinking of a bunch of people who want to come over and assault your women, they make sure that they can get over onto the mainland to assault your women. Thank you very much for that. The decree also requires the crew of rescue ships to inform migrants they welcome on board of the possibility of requesting international protection in any country of the European Union, and not only in the country of disembarkation. So they're just trying to kick the can down the road here. It's just like, we'll put you in port in Italy, but you can always just go further inland.
Yes, please go to Germany.
Yeah, you can go to Germany instead. Thank you for that one, Italy. In April of 2023, when the island of Lampedusa was experiencing large arrivals, Italy declared a state of a migratory emergency for 6 months. This provided for the appointment of a special commissioner to manage immigration. Fund of €5 million was created. Barely a month later, the Cutro decree went into effect. This text, named in reference to the city of Calabria, toughened migration law. The law limited special protection, a residence permit granted to migrants who cannot benefit from asylum or subsidiary protection. So most of the actual positive things that she's tried to do against immigration has all been against illegal migration, which, to be fair, is a huge problem. I think only a few years ago there was 500,000 border contacts across the southern European border with the Mediterranean of people trying to get, and that has reduced significantly. But again, it's only really a drop in the bucket when then you're going to throw all of that away, and over the course of 5 years from 2023 to 2028, invite in an extra 1 million non-EU people on work visas, who, again, just like happens in England, are probably going to overstay their visas. And if they try to get kicked out, ECHR judges will turn around and say, can't do that. That's illegal. There are other things that have been...
and all the time they're engaged in the black market and crime.
Oh, yeah. And of course... And
generating filth.
And because of all of this sort of stuff, you get stats saying that immigration and emigration are both soaring in Italy. Guess who's coming in? Guess who's leaving? Well, it's Italians leaving. Actual Italian people leaving their country, whereas the people coming in are foreigners. So last year, 382,071 foreigners moved to Italy, which was up from 378,000 in 2023, and the highest since 2014. So evil, far-right, fascist Mussolini 2.0 gets in and has record immigration numbers not seen in 10 years. Amazing. And in that same period, 155,000 Italians emigrated. So they're clearing them out. Brilliant. They're also still being forced by the courts to compensate stranded migrants from a case from 2018. Meloni couldn't do anything to stop that because it turns out these populists are pretty useless, sadly, a lot of the time, because they talk a big game and then they get into government and don't know how to manage any of it. They don't know how to get their way through these civil services. They don't know how to navigate the courts. So they just get bent over. Simple as that. And on the Albanian migrant detention centres, so back in January, nothing was happening with them. They were ghost towns because the court said they couldn't be used. In February, they were still not being used. And most recently, this month, just a couple of days ago, the courts are still saying no. The Supreme Court of Cassation said that they can't do it and gave a statement explaining why, which said that if they are in Albania on prolonged detention without a clear legal basis, despite the fact the legal basis is they broke into the country, well, that's arbitrary detention. You can't have that because the ECHR says that that's illegal.
I will say that the Supreme Court of Castration is well named.
It is. It truly is. So in terms of her actual attempts to prevent illegal immigration, again, border contacts on the Mediterranean seem to have actually dipped low, but the judges are still attacking them. They're not allowing them to be detained in processes that even Keir Starmer and other EU leaders are saying were really intelligent and well thought out. And in terms of legal migration, which is always the main problem because of the huge numbers of people coming in, she's just invited 1 million people in over the course of 5 years, from 2023 to 2028, 1 million non-Italian people coming in, while record numbers Italians are leaving. So, good job.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.